If you were a kid in the early 1960s, you remember the magic that Christmas carried? Not the kind that came from store shelves, but the kind that seemed to live in the air itself. December in those years was a season of real wonder. The world still felt safe, the town smaller, and the stars seemed brighter against those cold Midwestern skies. It wasn't about having everything. It was about the thrill of having something special, something you'd waited for all year. And that something often came wrapped in thick paper tied with a red satin bow, sitting beneath the fresh scent of pine and tinsel. I remember the nights before Christmas like snapshots, frost crawling along the window, the faint buzz of the old Christmas lights, and the radio playing Andy Williams or Brenda Lee. My parents would whisper in the kitchen while my sister and I pretended to sleep, wide-eyed in the dark. The living room glowed softly with the light from the aluminum tree, its color wheels slowly turning, blue, then green, then gold. You didn't just see Christmas. You felt it humming in your bones. And oh, the gifts. There was something about the way gifts felt in those years. Solid, mechanical, real. Plastic was new and exciting, but toys still had a kind of weight to them. You could smell the fresh paint and cardboard when you opened a box. The year I got my first Lionel train set, I thought I'd stepped into heaven itself. That little metal locomotive with its chugging motor and the faint scent of oil became my whole world. I'd build the track under the tree and run it in circles for hours, imagining journeys to places I'd only seen in the movies. My sister's dreams came in the form of a Barbie doll, the very symbol of glamour in that era. She had the blonde ponytail, the striped swimsuit, the little pink heels. Later came the dream house, with cardboard walls and mid-century furniture, the kind our parents actually owned. We would spend afternoons decorating it, moving the tiny couch and TV around like we were arranging our future. Looking back, Barbie and her world were as much about hope as they were about fashion. They reflected what America believed it was becoming: shiny, modern, optimistic. The Sears Wish Book was our Bible. It arrived like a miracle each November, thick as a brick, filled with dreams in glossy color. My brother and I would lie on the carpet and flip through its pages until they were dog-eared. I'd circle the Matchbox cars, the Etch-A sketch, the latest cowboy set. He'd go for the G.I. Joe, the Remco toys, the chemistry sets. That catalog wasn't just a shopping guide. It was a map of imagination. Every toy had a promise built into it. This is what joy looks like. You could still see the 50s lingering around the edges of those early 60s. There were toy soldiers, cap guns, and coonskin caps, echoes of the Davy Crockett craze that hadn't quite faded yet. Boys still played cowboys and Indians. Girls had easy-bake ovens that filled the whole house with the smell of cake mix and sugar. There were Slinkies, Tinker Toys, Erector sets, and board games like Life and Candyland, simple things that made hours disappear. One of the best Christmases of my childhood was the year I got an AM transistor radio. It fit in my hand, and for the first time, the world felt bigger than my small town. Through its crackling speaker came the Beatles, the Beach Boys, and Elvis, the soundtrack of a generation waking up. I'd sit by the window, the radio under my pillow, and think about the kids out there listening to the same songs at that very moment. Somehow, that made the world feel connected, even before anyone had heard of the internet. Shopping was an event all its own. Downtown stores transformed every December. The department store windows looked like storybooks come to life. Toy trains running through cotton snow, mannequins dressed as carolers, reindeer suspended from invisible wires. You could smell roasted peanuts and popcorn from Woolworths, hear the clanging of Salvation Army bells, and see mothers in gloves carrying brown paper packages tied with string. Kids waited in long lines to see Santa, clutching their wish lists written in shaky pencil. The Santas were always slightly different each year, but we didn't notice. We believed. Gifts weren't about abundance. They were about meaning. A new sled could make your whole winter. A fresh box of Crayola crayons, the 64-pack with the sharpener built into the back, could feel like endless possibility. The toys of that era had stories behind them. They weren't disposable. When you got a yo-yo or a Red Ryder BB gun, it stayed with you. It wasn't just a toy. It was part of your growing up. Christmas morning had its own kind of electricity. We'd wake before dawn, whispering to each other, afraid to move too fast and wake the house too soon. The lights of the tree glowed through the doorway like a promise. The first few seconds after running into that room, seeing the wrapped boxes, the bulging stockings, the half-eaten cookies left for Santa, were pure magic. It didn't matter if you got the big gift or not. It was the moment that mattered. Parents sat in their robes, sipping coffee, smiling at the chaos. Paper flew, ribbons tangled, and every gift brought laughter. The air smelled like pine, cinnamon, and something else, a kind of peace that seemed to fill the room. Even now, when I catch the faint scent of wrapping paper and tape, I'm right back there, barefoot on that old carpet, holding my new toy like it was treasure. And it was. By the time the mid to late 60s rolled in, everything was brighter. The music, the toys, even the wrapping paper. The world was changing fast, but at Christmas we still clung to the warmth of tradition. The glow of colored lights reflected on tinsel. Bing Crosby still crooned on the record player, yet now the air carried the rhythm of the Beatles, the surf guitars of California, and the hum of a new kind of hope. The presents themselves were changing too. The toys of the late 60s felt like they belonged to a future we were all racing toward. Suddenly, there were space toys, rockets, helmets, astronaut suits, and lunar modules, all inspired by the space race. The year Neil Armstrong took his first step on the moon, every kid wanted to follow him. Mattel released Major Matt Mason, the bendable astronaut figure, and we built lunar bases out of cardboard boxes and imagination. Even the wrapping paper had rockets printed on it. Technology crept into the magic of Christmas. Television wasn't just black and white anymore. By 1966, some families had color sets, and watching the Christmas parades or a Charlie Brown Christmas in color felt almost otherworldly. Commercials came alive. Shiny red bicycles, easy bake ovens with electric lights, and dolls that could talk or cry. Chatty Cathy was a sensation earlier in the decade, but now there was Baby First Step, a doll that actually walked. She wobbled more than she walked, but it didn't matter. She was alive in the way only a 1960s toy could be. For the boys, the gifts were getting faster, louder, and cooler. Hot Wheels hit the market in 1968, and suddenly, toy cars weren't just tiny. They raced. The smell of the new rubber tires, the click of the orange plastic tracks, The speed of those gleaming cars flying off the loops, that was pure adrenaline in a box. It wasn't just a toy. It was freedom you could fit in your hand. And then there were the music gifts, portable record players, Beatles albums, and transistor radios were must-haves. We'd unwrap a copy of Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band or Pet Sounds. And it wasn't just a gift. It was a revolution spinning at 45 RPM. Headphones were rare, so you played your music loud and your parents shouted from the kitchen to turn it down. Music was part of identity, and Christmas was when you got to express it. Girls got more than dolls now. There were craft kits, perfume sets, and small typewriters, each one hinting at independence. The late 60s were teaching everyone to dream bigger. Yet even with the cultural shifts, Woodstock, protests, long hair, the holidays stayed grounded. No matter how turbulent the world seemed, when the tree lights came on and the wrapping paper rustled, it all fell away. Advertising captured that feeling. Department stores like J.C. Penney and Sears ran pages of toys that blended fantasy and futurism. The Sears Wish Book of 1968 looked like something out of a dream. Pages filled with model trains, talking dolls, chemistry sets, and remote control cars that seemed straight from science fiction. Polaroid cameras were becoming the family favorite. You could snap a picture of Christmas morning and hold it in your hands minutes later. That, in itself, felt like magic. One of my fondest memories was getting my first bicycle, a Schwinn Stingray with a banana seat and chrome handlebars. It was metallic blue, with tassels that shimmered in the light of the Christmas tree. I remember my father wheeling it out from behind the sofa, grinning. To me, that bike wasn't transportation. It was freedom. I spent every day of spring riding through the neighborhood, the wind in my face, believing I could go anywhere. Christmas gifts of the 60s weren't about extravagance. They were about possibility. Every toy, every gadget, every wrapped surprise said the same thing. You can dream. Whether it was a Viewmaster showing slides of Disneyland, a Magic 8-ball predicting your future, or a board game like Mystery Date, the fun was mixed with imagination. You weren't just playing. You were creating a world. Even the simple things linger in memory. A box of Lifesavers, sweet storybook under the tree, the smell of Play-Doh, the hum of a model airplane motor, the static of the record player as a new Christmas song began. Parents gave gifts that built connections, a shared puzzle, a family movie projector, matching scarves knitted by Mom. It was never about what was expensive. It was about what stayed. As the decade drew to a close, Christmas in America glowed brighter than ever, a kaleidoscope of lights, music, and optimism. The nation had seen both triumphs and heartbreaks, but December always brought the same kind of peace. Families gathered in living rooms filled with laughter, wrapping paper scattered like confetti, and the old vinyl record spinning, "Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas." I can still picture it. My father on the sofa, my mother serving pie, the smell of coffee and pine, the hum of the television playing yet another Bing Crosby special, my little sister showing off her new Barbie outfit, my brother tinkering with his erector set, and me sitting cross-legged on the floor, watching the lights reflect in the chrome of my brand-new Hot Wheels track. Those gifts weren't just things. They were moments, proof that we were loved, that the world was kind, that magic was real for at least one morning every year. They taught us to imagine to dream, to care for the little things. Looking back now, the 60s seem like a dream themselves, bright, innocent, and humming with possibility. And every Christmas since, no matter how many years have passed, when I hear the faint crinkle of wrapping paper or smell the pine needles of a freshly cut tree, I'm right back there, in that warm living room, with laughter in the air and the world still shining outside the frosted window. The 1960s may have been the decade that changed everything, but for me, it will always be the decade where Christmas meant everything.